All sports, all plays. Yeah. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making up plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays. Yeah.
Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. How we doing? This is another episode of Loose Lugs, where we talk NASCAR almost every week, but not a lot going on in NASCAR. So we'll kind of hit the superlatives if you want to, and then we'll move on to college football. There's a lot to talk about there. For NASCAR, Richard Petty Motorsports, of course, being the headline so far this week and last week. They sold their majority to GMS Racing, who is the Truck Series team that's moving up to Cup Series. So they get two charters in the deal, which is kind of a big deal because I think going into the season, the 94 had been looking for a charter, or they were going to try and qualify for each race. Not exactly the easiest thing to do every week. So it's good that they're going to get that charter out of the deal. Also, that means Eric Jones will be his teammate going forward. I do expect a number change, maybe not this year, but pretty soon. For Eric Jones, because he will be a GMS driver going forward. I think, if I'm putting numbers together, the 94, I know the 95 is available. So that might be a 94-95 combo for them. We'll see. There's still a lot to be worked out there. They just got the acquisition done. So other than that, there was some suspensions indefinitely today for 3 crew members. The crew chief that works for MBM, his name's Johnny Roten. He's suspended indefinitely. John Bird, who's the hauler driver for the number 38 Front Row Motorsports, he's suspended indefinitely. And Austin Zivich, who's the car chief for the number 78 BJ McLeod Motorsports Ford in the Xfinity Series. Those guys are all suspended indefinitely. The two latter guys that I mentioned, they are suspended for behavioral penalties. Johnny Roten, from what I read, it's a substance abuse policy violation. He can probably clear that up, shortly into the season by taking some classes and showing some progress with whatever he's dealing with. Other than that, like I said, there's not a whole lot to discuss right now. Everybody's kind of gearing up for the season, so there's not a lot of public eye candy. If you check NASCAR.com, they've got a few paint schemes, like Martin Truex Jr.'s scheme went up, I believe, yesterday. It looks really good. I really like it. But there's not a lot going on. Chase Elliott, most popular driver. I think we've kind of figured that one out. So that's basically all we have for NASCAR. We'll switch over to college football. A lot. I'm going to start the show by saying I think that Oklahoma made a mistake hiring Brent Venables. I don't think he's the right guy. I've seen the reports saying that, the deal is done and this and that, but I was really hoping, they would change their mind. I just don't see him being a fit. I mean, he's a big defensive guy. He's going to rely on an offensive coordinator to build his system. And I don't know if that's a way to go into the Big 12, gearing up for an SEC transition in a few years. I think a game manager like Mark Stoops would have been a much better deal for them. I thought he was a big candidate. Or Luke Fickell from Cincinnati. Those guys I think would have been better fits. We'll see. Maybe, hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully Brent Venables is the guy. Maybe they saw something in his interviews and that told them that he's their guy. So we'll see. Time will tell. And the dominoes continue to fall. With Clemson's defensive coordinator position now open, there's guys all around the country that are going to be clamoring to get on that list. And I don't even have a list right now of guys that I would consider on that, territory. Obviously, for Georgia, if Dan Lanning does not accept a job somewhere and Will Muschamp doesn't progress, to defensive coordinator for Georgia, I would say Will Muschamp is on that list. He's a very good defensive coordinator. Just don't make him your head coach. It seems to crumble when he's the head coach, but I mean, in his short term at Auburn, he turned Auburn's defense around. It's South Carolina as a head coach, they had a good defense. They just couldn't score points, and he kind of struggles with the game management side. As far as the conference championship games this weekend, there were some good games. I picked a few upsets that didn't happen, and then the game that I was so certain about did end up getting upset, and that was Georgia losing to Bama. That was a weird game. A lot of the things that were Georgia's strength going into that game were weaknesses by the end. Obviously, the secondary was very shaky. Safeties, the biggest thing for me was safeties were not in correct positions. I mean, both really deep plays for Jameson Williams. Lewis Seen was in the box for one of them and chose the under route and left Williams wide open. And then on the other deep route where he had coverage, I think with Keely Ringo down the field, Ringo was about 2 steps behind, and I think he was expecting, Lewis Seen to have the over the top, and Seen was short, so that was an easy touchdown. So they've definitely got some work to do going forward. But the good news is they are still in the playoff. They got the 3 seed. They'll play Michigan down in Miami on, January 1st, right? Make sure on that. No, December 31st. I'm sorry. In the Orange Bowl. The game right before that is, of course, going to be Alabama and Cincinnati and Texas for the Cotton Bowl. Cincinnati played really well in the second half. I mean, I looked at that halftime score and I was thinking, because I picked Houston, I was thinking, wow, I might actually pick one of the correct upsets today. And I did not. They pulled away in the second half and looked really good. They've got a very tall task ahead of them. If they're going to stand up to Bama, I think they've got to come out and play their football. They can't find themselves trying to stop what Bama does and, kind of structure their game around what Bama's good at. They've got to play Cincinnati football, and they've got to do it perfectly to have a chance to win that game. Bama's going to score a lot of points. They're going to get in the 40s, maybe even the 50s. So the only chance for Cincinnati for this thing is to score as many points as they do. And that's not going to be easy. That Bama defense looked really good against Georgia. Will Anderson's a beast, and he's going to get in the backfield, and he's going to make it hard to play to his side of the field. For the Georgia-Michigan matchup, this is the best case scenario for Georgia. They match up really well with Michigan. Michigan likes to be physical and run the ball. That's what Georgia takes away from you, is they are physical. They take the run away. They make your quarterback beat you. And I don't know, how the game's going to play out. I can have predictions all day, but I predicted the Alabama-Georgia game, and I was completely backwards in my score. So I'll just say that if Georgia's going to play Michigan the way they played Bama, I think that, Michigan's got a good chance. But if they come out and play Georgia football, get the ground game going. What's up, Freddie? How we doing, man? If they're going to get the ground game going and keep Stetson Bennett upright, let him play his style of football, this would be a good game, because I think Georgia's defense is going to match up really well with Michigan. They like to run the ball just off tackle. And, Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt. This will be a game you see a lot more of the 3-down linemen, where most of the season we've seen 2 and then outside linebackers like Nolan Smith and Adam Anderson before he was suspended. you're going to see Trayvon Walker play his defensive end spot for this game. This is a much more physical offensive line than they've probably played all year. So I think you'll go back to the 2020, 2019 defense of the three-down lineman style defense. And I don't know how it's going to work out, but if Georgia plays like they did against Bama, like I said, Michigan's got a chance. There's some other really good bowl games, though. I don't want to focus on any too hard, but one that stuck out to me of the New Year's 6 games, Michigan State and Pittsburgh is going to be a good game. That's Kenny Pickett, who is a Heisman finalist. I think he's got the outside chance. I think Bryce Young's got it wrapped up, but he's had a really good season for the schedule that they play and the type of football they play at Pitt. He's done exceptionally well. I think that Michigan State's going to follow the Michigan blueprint as well, ground and pound, and set up the passing game off of the run, be physical. It's kind of their style. That's going to be a good game. Start to finish, I think it's going to be a great game. And then I look at this Baylor Ole Miss game. That's going to be interesting. I think Baylor isn't matched up very well against a team like Ole Miss. I mean, their front seven is athletic, but their secondary may get exposed in this game. Lane Kiffin likes to throw the ball 20, 30 yards down the field and make you cover everybody. I don't know if Baylor can handle that because, in the Big 12, they had a really good defense because they faced offenses like the spread where, you expect that deep throw, but you play offensive lines that aren't quite up to snuff sometimes, and you can put pressure and get the ball out earlier. Ole Miss actually has an underrated offensive line. They've done very good at times this year, creating running lanes, protecting the quarterback. So for Baylor, the key is going to be, can they play the type of defense they played against, Oklahoma State, putting pressure on the quarterback, keeping everything in front of them. So I really look for that matchup to be pretty interesting. Another bowl game I think it's an odd matchup is South Carolina and North Carolina in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. This game is in Charlotte, so it's kind of like the annex of Charlotte Bowl. And I feel like if South Carolina wins, they should get to keep Charlotte. I mean, really, it's really close to the border anyway. So if they win, just give it to them. Charlotte, South Carolina even sounds good. But I think South Carolina does have a good chance in that game. Sam Howell may not even play in that game. I mean, nothing's been announced, but I think he still believes, and the scouts still believe, he's a late first, early second round pick. And those guys normally don't play in the bowl games, that low down the charts. So let's see what happens. But even if he plays, I think South Carolina will have a shot. That'll be a good game to watch. I'm looking forward to that one. And it's always a good game there in Charlotte. They always get good matchups. Some other bowl games, Oregon and Oklahoma, the Alamo Bowl. That's going to be awesome. I think those teams actually are built very similar. The best of my knowledge, Cristobal will still coach the bowl game. I don't think he takes over at Miami until after the season. I could be wrong. I just haven't seen any clarification saying Diaz is out now at Miami. I think the wording was not retained, which normally means you play your bowl game, you coach your bowl game, and then you move on. So we'll see what happens there. But that's going to be a great game. Either way, Purdue and Tennessee in the Music City Bowl. Purdue has been great at times this year, but they were very inconsistent. I love their quarterback. I mean, their quarterback play has been excellent all year. And Tennessee has shown their own offensive, consistencies. Their defense has been an issue at times, but they've put up points. So that could be a really good game. Definitely something to watch. Clemson and Iowa State in the Cheez-It Bowl. That's a cool matchup as well. It's going to be interesting to see if Clemson's defense is very different without Venables, who I'm pretty sure is not coaching the bowl game. I could be wrong, but I think he's already moving over to his new office in Oklahoma. So that could be interesting. There was one more that I saw on this list that I was like, wow, that is a great matchup. And it's one of the earlier bowls. Oh, yeah, Northern Illinois and Coastal Carolina. So this is probably the last game we see the coach at Coastal Carolina playing or coaching his team. I think he gets Jamie Chadwell. I think he gets a job after this game. Maybe if it's only an offensive coordinator position. There's rumors that Tony Elliott might be on his way out to possibly Virginia or Duke. If that happens, I look at Chadwell to be a great candidate to replace him. His offensive system is very different than most. That's not a bad thing for Clemson. Their offense has been very subpar, in my opinion, for most of the year. Very subpar, so they could use some help there. Actually, their offense has made their defense look pretty bad at times. So it might not be a bad thing to get some change there. And, Elliott's done good with what he had, but, move on, young man. Let's see. Yeah, that's the bowl game that I saw that kind of stuck out to me that are going to be good games. Wisconsin and Arizona State could be good, but I think Arizona State's going to give them way more than that Wisconsin defense can handle, kind of like we saw in the Minnesota game. Miami and Washington State. For Miami to be at a bowl game is crazy to me, and then see Manny Diaz get fired basically, at the same time. Doesn't really sit well, but when Cristobal is sitting on the doorstep, I guess you do what you got to do. They have a lot of faith that he's going to turn the program around. And the report is that they're also trying to get Clemson's athletic director to move in, which would be a good pairing. Then they can aggressively go after good coordinators and that kind of stuff. We'll see what happens. Penn State and Arkansas in the Outback Bowl. Penn State usually does well against SEC teams in bowl games. But Arkansas, those 4 losses, people see 8-4 Arkansas, and they're like, that's a good season for them, but they're not that great. 2 of Arkansas's losses, Georgia and Alabama. Those 2 are in the playoff. They had a really good season. They laid a goose egg against Georgia. I think a lot of that was the mental side. And then they played Alabama really well. They gave them a run for their money. So I think Arkansas runs away with that game. And Treylon Burks, I'm pretty sure he plays. I haven't heard anything yet about him skipping the bowl. You're going to start seeing that news pop up here this week. The guys that are going to skip bowl games and just get ready for the NFL draft. Let's see what else. Notre Dame and Oklahoma State was one of the New Year's 6 games that I don't think that's even going to be a good game. I think Notre Dame runs away with that one, and then Ohio State and Utah. This is a bad matchup, but it's what you get because Michigan, Big Ten champ, obviously in the playoffs, you get a number 2 in the rankings. That would be Ohio State, but this is not a good matchup. Ohio State is probably going to score 60. Utah might get in the 30s, but this Pac-12 deal, for a long time they've been trying to keep up with the Big 12, honestly, for Power 5. They haven't put out great teams. They've struggled in recruiting. It's hard to keep up with teams that are in the SEC, but, the California kids that the Pac-12 used to, feast off of, they're going to places like Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson. They're going, even Florida, they're going everywhere but California and out west. And anytime you see Utah as the Pac-12 champ, I think it signifies just how weak your conference is. And the same thing with the ACC this year. Not having Clemson as their bell cow, I mean, it shows where the conference is. Pittsburgh as their go-to team, and that's kind of crazy. The USC will probably end up being favored when the year starts in the Pac-12 just because of Lincoln Riley being there. It's not going to happen that quick. I really don't think you're looking at USC year one being the best team in the Pac-12. Oregon has a hole to fill. It would be kind of crazy, but I think Chip Kelly is going to be on that list to come back. He had Oregon going completely in the right direction. I mean, they made a college championship appearance. They've done a lot of great things under Chip Kelly, and he's at UCLA right now, and he's done some decent things there. But I think he would probably kill to get back to Oregon, where he had his best success in college football. It's just a wish list. I don't know if he's a candidate. I'm not on here saying I've heard things because I haven't. He would just be, the first guy that comes to mind. Oregon replacement, Chip Kelly. He recruited the West well. He handpicked a lot of the kids that he wanted from California. And when that slipped, a lot of the Western guys started going east, SEC, ACC. That's when you saw the Pac-12 really fall apart. All right. So, looking at these matchups, I'll go over the college football playoff top four. I knew Bama was going to be number one, and I was pretty sure Michigan was going to be two. I thought Georgia would be four, and that's because of the loss. And they didn't win their conference. Cincinnati's not Power 5, so I understand they wanted to squeak them in. They didn't want a rematch. They didn't want Georgia versus Alabama, right away. They wanted something else first, but I feel like they took the opportunity to push an all SEC national championship. And now they made it possible. If you take that out of the picture, put Georgia at 4, Bama at 1, they play Michigan and Cincinnati. I think Michigan, Cincinnati has done really good to get to where they are, and I'm not trying to discount that. I'm not sure they belong quite yet. They're a very talented group. I'm not saying anything negative. I just don't think they can beat any of the top 3. So putting them up against Bama, I'm sure that's categorically correct. I would rather have seen them play Michigan. And oh no, not happening, Ken. Sorry, man. We match up way too well with Michigan. I think that's going to be a low-scoring game, like 21-6 Georgia. I'm calling it now. But I would rather have seen Michigan Cincinnati, and then the SEC guys fight it out to play for the championship, not a rematch of 2017. I think that would have been more of a fair thing going in, but I don't make the selections, and I'm surely not on the committee, so they got it right. Anyway, I do think that Cincinnati it didn't matter who they play. I think they were going to take a loss. But like I said, they've done exceptional to get to where they're at. Luke Fickell's coached them very well. I'm a little surprised he didn't get the LSU job. I thought that was his for the taking. Brian Kelly, obviously a great hire. I don't think they could have done better than that with the state of the Tigers. But it still would have been nice to see Fickell get a shot at an SEC school. He might still. There's options. There's teams that have not announced, exactly what they're doing. There might be some carousel changes. I mean, a guy like Lane Kiffin, I thought might be an Oklahoma candidate for a little while. I thought Lane Kiffin might even be on Florida's radar before Billy Napier. But, there's still things are going to revolve. There's still schools that are going to get new coaches and lose coaches, and it's still out there. We're not done with the big moves. Like, Cristobal going to Miami, that opens a hole at Oregon. Let's just say, Josh Heupel, who's done a great job at Tennessee this year for what he had to work with. I was surprised he didn't get a really good shot at Oklahoma job, but let's just say Oregon offers him way more money than he's making at Tennessee. I mean, I don't know that he takes it, but it's going to be in the back of his mind that might be a good deal for him. And then you have an opening at Tennessee. So a lot of things can happen. There's still a lot of time for something like that to happen. And usually this is that week coming up that you start seeing the big moves. And Lincoln Riley going to USC really put things into motion for a lot of different schools. And then the conference transitionings like Oklahoma, Texas to the SEC in a couple of years. And then Cincinnati going to the Big 12, a couple of the teams, the Big Houston. Those kind of change who you want as a coach. Which is why, Venables going back to Oklahoma, I don't think he wasn't even in my top 5. I mean, I had Mark Stoops and Josh Heupel at the top of that list because if you bring Heupel on, I mean, he just got done with his first year as an SEC head coach. So he has experience in getting a team ready for an SEC schedule. Venables does not. He doesn't even have head coaching experience. So it's, like I said, I hope they did the right thing for them. I just don't see it happening. I think there were guys out there that had head coaching experience with much better success. 2 national championships as a defensive coordinator carries weight. It doesn't carry the same weight as 2 national championships as a head coach. It is different. So I look forward to seeing what Brent Venables can do at Oklahoma. And I'm not trying to dog the guy. He's a great defensive coach. I think for what they needed at Oklahoma, because it's not just getting next year's team ready, it's keeping those recruiting classes intact, like 2022, 2023. Even looking at 2024, they've already had a few guys jump ship and go to USC. You want to prevent that from happening further. And the same thing for Clemson now. They lost Venables. Who on that defense that's coming in maybe steps back and says, well, I was going to play for him. Maybe I go to Oklahoma or maybe I go somewhere else. It's a lot. There's a lot of college football is like a huge wheel, and every little cog that turns the wheel, you take one out and everything turns differently or doesn't turn at all. So I am not a college coach, and I'm not going to pretend that I am, but I that pressure's got to be hard. So I'll just keep doing this little podcast. I like the bowl structure. It seems like they added a few bowls this year. There's a couple I don't recognize. And I could be wrong. The Cure Bowl, I think, is new. Maybe they just renamed it. The Lending Tree Bowl might be new. I'm glad to see them do that. Also, a shout out to Old Dominion. Getting to 6-6 was not easy. They barely got there. They needed the extra game to get there. Not the extra game, the last game, I should say, but they're going to be in the Myrtle Beach Bowl against Tulsa. I believe that's their first ever bowl game. So that's, kudos to those guys. I've been to Old Dominion a lot. I was stationed just down the road. Ken Prinz, I'm sure he's been there a bunch because we were stationed together at HM14 in Norfolk, Virginia. But it's a nice little school. It's not a big, huge university. I mean, we're talking, it's one side of the street, and then they have a few office buildings on the other. So for them to win 6 games at the FBS level, that's awesome for them. I'm proud of that. The Monarchs did really well, and they have a good system going. A new head coach. I believe his name is Renner. Another team I saw in here. I was like, how did they make the bowl? Ball State. Ball State gets Georgia State in the Camellia Bowl. That is awesome. You don't usually see Ball State in bowl game chat, but they are there. Anyway, I think we are going to wrap it up. Let me know what you guys want to talk about next week. We will do blown coverage on Wednesday. We'll also talk college football. This is kind of a dead period because we're in between, conference championships now and setting up for the bowl game. But I think we've got some good stuff coming. We'll get some practices in next week after finals. Almost everybody's got finals this week, so you won't hear much. But as far as I know, everybody starts their bowl prep Saturday, and then they go back to full out practices on Monday of next week. So you'll hear some stuff. You'll see some stuff. Hope everybody has a good week. 19 days till Christmas. Yay. Let's get this holiday season done. And we will catch you guys on Wednesday on Blown Coverage right here on the ASAP Sports Network.
All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making up plays. We talking the game, get you to the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.